Hello and welcome. I'm Annette Reeder from thebiblicalnutritionist.com, and today we're going to use a grain that you may not be familiar with. It's amaranth. Amaranth has such tiny little grains that when you see it compared to the wheat, you wonder, how can so much good come out of such a small tiny seed? Well, it can. And amaranth is gluten-free. So for those of you who are gluten-free, then we have a delicious chocolate amaranth muffin we're going to make today. Thanks for joining me and letting me share with you God's recipe for excellent health. Now this recipe calls for amaranth grain, and I got this recipe from Sue Becker, and she always has delicious recipes. When you mill the amaranth grain, once again you would be using your mock mill or maybe one of the other mills that are out there, Harvest Mill and the other mills, they're all good. I just like the mock mill because it's a stone ground, it's made in Germany, just really fantastic machine. You're going to get a fine flour. You always want a fine flour when you're doing muffins. So we're going to be doing the amaranth grain today. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and I'm using 1.5 cups of amaranth grain. I've already freshly milled it right before the video. To this I'm going to add our salt. I'm going to add our salt, which is 1/2 teaspoon, our baking powder, which is 1/4 teaspoon, our baking soda, 1/2 teaspoon, and our cinnamon, which is 1 teaspoon. And when I looked at the recipe, I thought, well, it'll have to have cinnamon to be good, and sure enough, she had cinnamon in it. Now I'm going to make one variation off of her recipe just because I want to teach you that what you have on hand is more important than what a recipe says. Now the salt, my salt is always more of a colorful salt because it's Redmond's real salt, and it just has all the minerals that are necessary for you to metabolize the salt. When you have a doctor who puts you on a low salt diet, the reason you have a high sodium content and the reason you're having heart issues is because you're using processed foods. When you go back to the real food that God created, you're not going to have those problems. Now to this, I'm going to add one more powder ingredient, and that is one of the important ingredients, and that's our cocoa powder. So we're going to have 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder. You can't have chocolate without cocoa powder. Now cocoa powder that I buy is organic and it's fair trade. It's important that it says fair trade because we do not want young children being used as slaves to harvest the chocolate. So chocolate and coffee are the 2 products that are harvested around the world that the most slave trade is involved in as far as food. So check your coffee, check your chocolate that you buy, and make sure it's fair trade. All right, so we have those dry ingredients. To this, we're going to go ahead and add our oil. You can use an olive oil. You can use a coconut oil too, an avocado oil, whatever is your preference. Let me stir that in. I'm going to add in my 2 eggs. I like to slightly beat them before I add them. Now, eggs give you that protein. They also give you what's known as lecithin, and lecithin is what helps hold everything together. It's like a binding agent, and it's good for your brain. Good for your brain and the nerve endings of your brain. Now I'm going to go ahead and add honey. Now this is my variation because I have great access to a beekeeper. So honey is very easy for me to come by, and it's less expensive than sucanat. Sucanat is dried sugar cane. You might also see molasses granules. You can see sucanat with honey. Just different types of names have been added to the word sucanat. You could buy organic, sugar from the grocery store. That's a little bit more processed. So I use honey. Now because I'm using honey, I don't do a full equivalent of honey 1 cup to 1 cup sucanat because to me it's more sweet and I don't need the extra sweetness, so I usually cut it back. So for this one I'm using 3/4 cup of honey. And like I said, I get the wild honey that is from the beekeeper nearby. I'm also adding some vanilla extract. You can use 1/2 teaspoon. If you love the vanilla flavoring, then you could go all the way up to 1 teaspoon if you wanted to. All right, you can see this is a delicious dish. To this, we're going to add 1 mashed banana. See, that's why we don't really need quite as much sweetener because we're adding a banana. And when we have vanilla plus cinnamon together, that is a sweetener to your brain. So you can easily cut back on the sweetness in these muffins and your family won't even know. So if you're like, oh, that's a nut, that's a lot of, sweetener in there. It sure is. Cut back on it. You've got the cinnamon, you got the vanilla, and you've got a mashed banana. So good stuff there. Now we add in our vegetables, which is 1 cup of shredded zucchini. Now mine are a little bit big. Sometimes I shred them in the Bosch shredder and they come out much more fine. This time I just shredded them by hand. So they're a little bit bigger, but my husband's used to it by now, so he will enjoy it. And then we're going to add some chocolate chips. This is optional. You don't have to, because once again, it's going to increase the amount of sugar in the recipe. It's totally optional, but I do not want to have to eat all these myself, so my husband likes his chocolate chips, so that's why I put it in. And then I have some leftover hazelnuts from my recipe making my own homemade Nutella. So make sure you're subscribed to this channel so you can stay tuned with all of my recipes and my cooking demonstrations. But not only that, I hope you pay attention to the Q&A videos because I get to answer your questions. And your questions are important, and that's where we get to dive into what's going on in your health and what are God's foods that will help to overcome that health challenge. So I have some hazelnuts here. And just mixing that up. And yes, it's a little bit more liquidy than you may have if you use a dry sucanut. But that's okay, it'll just take a little bit longer to bake, but it will still be delicious. So that was a lot of ingredients. It takes a lot longer to prep all your ingredients than it does to stir it up. Now we're going to put them in some mini muffin tins and then we're going to bake it. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and use our mini muffin tins. You could use the regular size muffin tins and you can make the jumbo muffins. They will all work. Now we've come to the day where everything's getting a little bit more expensive. I still have some leftover cake liners, muffin cake liners, so I'm going to use them. But as groceries get more expensive, this is really kind of a luxury that's not really necessary. It's just because we've been in a day where everything was easy, it was cheap, and so why not do it? Well, you could really just spray the muffin tins and go without these. But I am going to go ahead and use them because I have quite a few on hand. We had them in a special a year ago and we forgot to promote the special. So I have like 100 of these little packets in my storage. So I know we should offer another special, but sometimes specials have to kind of make sense for you to understand why you need it. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and put these out and then we will fill up our muffin tin. Now you can go ahead and use just a spoon, or if you've got a cookie dough scoop, that is always fun to do as well. And I say the word fun a lot in the kitchen because I want you to enjoy cooking. Most of the time when I don't enjoy it is because I'm too busy. I'm too busy and I just need something fast on the table because I have projects to do, I have videos to make, I have content to write, and I have a family. I'm a grandmother, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, and life can get busy. And so sometimes you just need to do quick. But right now, I want you to enjoy it. I want you to plan these out. These will freeze really well, so you could just pull them out anytime you need a quick breakfast for the kids, in the car, you need a snack, in between sports events, whatever it is, if you're taking your kids, young ones, to the library for story time, this is going to be a really good treat for them to have. You could even add a little bit of protein powder to it if you want to increase the protein content. Yet, another way to add protein, wouldn't be as expensive as protein powder, would be to add a nut butter. Oh, I wish I'd have done that. That is such a good idea. That just came to me, but anyway, so adding about 2 tablespoons of a peanut butter or a sunflower seed butter, almond butter, any of the nut butters. You can make nut butters yourself or you can buy them. Most of us buy it because it's quick and easy. But if you did that, you'd have a delicious peanut butter chocolate flavor. That would be delicious. Then you can feel even better about serving these to your kids, whenever they need a quick pick-me-up. So make this a breakfast dish. Add some, maybe you have a farmer that you know where you can get some turkey sausage. Maybe you could have some eggs with it, and then you have a muffin on the side. Or if you increase the protein content like I just suggested, it could be a breakfast all its own. But breakfast needs to have a good quality protein. We need to get the day started really well and not add too much sugar into our diet, and it's because these have sugar. These also have a lot of fiber. Now, I could increase the fiber by adding some freshly milled flaxseed. Okay, now I'm coming up with the bomb of a new recipe while we're doing this video. Well, we're going to put these in the oven. They're going to bake at 400 degrees for 20 to 25 minutes. But because they're mini muffins, we're going to check them at probably 15 minutes to see how they're doing and make sure they don't get overdone. Well, our chocolate amaranth muffins are done and they are delicious. We made about 36 of them total, and yes, they're very good. My husband approved. He said, yes, these are a keeper. Make these more often. Now I use the amaranth grain. It's a very small, tiny grain like a millet, but you can use any grain you want. These are gluten-free, dairy-free, so if that works for your family, then enjoy. But if you like to use wheat and you like to have the other grains, then use those as well. You cannot make them with just oat flour. You need something else to kind of help pull it all together, but these are going to be delicious and I can't wait for you to try them. If you have a recipe you'd like for me to make for you, tell me in the chat box down below, and I look forward to reading your comments. But most importantly, I look forward to understanding that you know in your heart how much God loves you. He loves you with an everlasting love. He's loved you from the moment of conception. That's how much He's loved you. And He has an everlasting love for you that will never end. He's waiting to take you in and have a relationship. Life is tough. Life is hard. The world wants us to be in chaos, and God wants you to be in control, to have the calmness that He is going to offer you. Thanks for watching, and thanks for enjoying these chocolate amaranth muffins. I look forward till next time.